Hey, good Thursday evening to everyone. How are you? It is good to see you, and it is good to be seen by you. I, being glad and doing the seeing, am Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver, coming to you live from an undisclosed location somewhere in the swamps of sunny Central Florida. And I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic evening. Christopher Sims, Daniel Rowan, Damien X247, Nordic Maelstrom, and you folks watching over on Twitter. If you haven't popped in the chat, if you haven't dropped a message, please say hi so I can say hi back to you. And if the tides of YouTube have blown you this way, have washed you this way, the winds would do the blowing, the tides would do the washing. If you haven't already, do me a solid and click the subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications about this and other live streams as they are going to happen. And of course, we have our lovely interstitial videos that we do, just newsy things that we kind of get onto as the news allows. Information you can use about tabletop role-playing games. David Mills, hi, good to see you. Michael Dale. But anyway, so yeah, we've got a show for you guys tonight. We have a guest. He's in the back room. He's helping himself, hopefully, to some of the bottled water, craft beers, and pistachios we have back there. I always stock the pistachios. But anyway, so speaking of guests, I'm a little excited about some future guests we've got. I talked to John Popson. Now, if you are an old school fan of the Delver's Dungeon, I'm talking like pre 2022, 2023. Then you'll remember John. John is the big brain, the mastermind behind effing cool minis. John's going to be here at the end of September. I am still asking if Laura Daniel can be here. She's got a lot on her plate, but hopefully she can be here in the autumn/fall. I got some. I put out some feelers. So hopefully we can get Bob Antone. And if you don't know who Bob is, you do know his music because we have that great end track, Owlbear. Yeah, that's that Bob Antone, the Bob Antone. So hopefully we can get him here for spooky October and we can talk ghost stories and cryptids and things that go bump or bwang in the night. So I'm looking forward to all those things. Before we get started tonight with our guest, however, I don't want to go into any details about this because I'm not sure how much it would be discussed to a greater or lesser extent. Oh, Nordic. I tell you what, there's pretzels back there too. Root around in the fridge. Feel free. RPG Pizzeria says, I got to make a video walking you through the treasures around my desk. I could certainly do that, RPG Pizzeria. But not tonight, because we have a guest. Hey, Doc Flamingo has gifted a membership. Thank you very much, Doc. I appreciate that, brother. One of you lucky people gets a membership. Susie Warren, the Wheeling Dragon, our favorite kind of dragon. I don't want to go into details. I don't know if it's my place to. Susie has some pretty heavy stuff going on right now. Not her physical self, but things that are it's pretty damn heavy. So if you guys could throw up some good thoughts, send some good vibes. Look, whether you're spiritual, whether you're experiential, however you do, please direct them to Susie. Okay, if she comes on, or if she pings me back later and says, "Yeah, you can tell folks," I'll let you know. But she could really use it. She could really use it. No, it's nothing like that, David. It's nothing so intense. So congrats to Jorge. Imperial Ramblings, hello. I'm going to have Imperial Ramblings on further down the road, a little further down. He and I have got a little something, but there are lines on a paper at this point, but that's for then. We've got a great guest tonight. This is going to be a lot of fun. This guy, I've said to you folks before that I really enjoy TTRPG Twitter, and I do. It's a pretty darn cool place, and I've met a lot of wonderful people. I've met a lot of nice people. I've met some curmudgeonly people, but just the same, they are awesome. Yeah, Laura Daniel, you guys love Laura, So, hey TXG, welcome. Haven't seen you around in a while, brother. So, tonight's guest is one of those folks that I met, and we kind of like passed like ships in the night, and like last week I was getting things ready for a guest. He's like, "You want me to come?" And I was like, no. Yes, I do. But I would never drop it on somebody unless I know you well enough to just completely abuse our friendship, to drag you kicking and screaming into the streaming. So we set things up, and he's going to be here. And of course, in just a second. So if you looked at the thumbnail, if you peeked at the thumbnail, you know who this is. So I'm going to put on the magical AKG headphones, and through the power of the internet, everybody please put your hands together and welcome the one and only, at least I believe it's the one and only. I'm sure he'll let us know if it isn't. Ralts Bloodthorne, I think I got that right. But I think I have permission to just call him Mike.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey. Can you hear me very well?
You're a little choppy. Little bit of background hiss.
The cicada. That's cicadas, actually.
I thought it was a phaser on overload.
No. The cicadas are really bad this year.
Oh yeah. I've heard, as it were. But anyway, welcome, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate the exposure and the chance to talk. I always like blathering.
Excellent. I do like to I do like to expose myself to my guests sometimes. And that's why I can't go on Twitch anymore. Anyway, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Not much to tell. I mean, notorious troublemaker. No, I'm old. I'm old, and those days are behind me. Basically, small town guy. Went around the world a couple times, did various things, and settled down in my 30s. Mm-hmm. Got 4 kids, son, 3 daughters, some grandkids. I've been married 30 years. Started playing tabletop RPGs. God, early 80s, and I managed to get on the beta for the original D&D 3.0.
Okay.
Which, oh God, talk about arguments.
Well, let's stick a pin in that, because I do want to talk about that, but please go on.
I wrote stuff for that. Die 20 Modern came out. I was on the alpha and the beta for that, and God, the arguments were legendary over that. I got a lot of arguments over that. Actually produced some stuff for it. Die 20 Future on the beta test, on the alpha test, and still arguments. And I actually produced material for that too. Then I just up and walked away from everything. I mean, we're talking, I deleted all my sites. I went through, deleted my forum posts. I deleted my logins, completely left the internet for like 6 years.
Wow.
And, which startled everybody that I just left. People are like, whatever happened to him? Was he dead? And, people knew me. He's like, no, he's not dead. He just doesn't log on the internet anymore. Got back into it, started writing. God, my 15th book just went live on Amazon tonight. The two omnibuses are both publishing, but they're huge omnibuses for book 1 to 3 and then 4 to 6. And then there's another one I'm doing the cover right now for it's a omnibus for 1 through 5. But I mean, I've got 15 out there, so I might as well omnibus some of them.
Right.
I still play D&D. I mean, I got my 1E stuff right here. I got a shelf full of Pathfinder. I got a massive collection. I've got almost all of the Rifts books recollected. I lost most of my stuff when the house burned down. I lost another time in a flood. Lost a lot of stuff when I moved. Mainly because we threw everything in the truck and in the U-Haul and drove away. And if it didn't fit in the truck or the U-Haul, well, it was the new owner's problem, not mine.
So somebody might have gotten quite an eclectic collection of books, you're saying.
Oh, they really did. I left behind like six bookshelves of books and all kinds. I just took the rare stuff with me.
Sure.
Other than that, I mean, because we were like, you know what? We are out of here. That is the 5th fire in 5 years. And that is the 5th time the whole valley has been full of smoke.
Oh.
The smoke was so bad the last 3 years that sitting at one stoplight, you could not see the next stoplight. And I couldn't breathe. I mean, we had a cat that sounded like a 12-pack-a-day smoker. My dog sounds like a 2-pack-a-day smoker, and that was from years ago. The dogs would just lay there and breathe heavy.
Poor puppies. Poor you.
Hey, thanks, Damien. I appreciate that. But, yeah, I mean, I've been around quite a bit. I mean, I've done a lot of stuff. And my wife has gray hair because I was a living cartoon. I mean, she got the witch lock? That thin witch lock? She had a witch lock by the time she was 30 because of me.
Oof.
She's probably one of the few women who have actually heard, Daddy's out there fist fighting a deer.
Oh, wow. That is woof. We've had similar experiences. We have a bear that basically our house is in his way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know you, I say he, it's frequently been mom and a cub or mom and 2 cubs. And, what can I say? We put out a pretty good sideboard for them in the trash. So, many is a Saturday morning when I have to go out there and shovel split open garbage bags in.
Before I left, I called my boss. Back when I was slinging a cable. I called my boss and I can't come into work. And he's like, why not? I'm like, because there's a cat on the hood of the truck. And he's like, I don't care if there's a cat on the truck. Push that cat off. I took a picture, sent it to him. And it was a full-grown female mountain lion laying there sunning herself.
Enjoying that warm metal.
Yeah. And he was like, you know what? Show up when you can.
Well, you have definitely had the temperate condition hills and mountains encounter chart punch card filled out. Let's roll back a little bit. So like so many of us, if I may be so bold as to group you in with us Gen Xer types.
I'm definitely Gen X. I mean,
right on. So you picked up D&D back in the early 80s. What was is there a formative moment there? Is there a I saw it on the Toys R Us bookshelf and was like, it spoke to me, beam of light shining down on it, or what?
I don't remember exactly how. I remember I had just the book. I didn't have the dice or anything else, but just the book of the guy with the arrow pointing it at the dragon. And my dad was throwing it because it kept me out of trouble.
Right.
And I ended up partly the library and partly, I remember my dad coming home and tossing them on the coffee table for me and saying, here, stay out of trouble. And it was the 3 AD&D books. I mean,
wow.
It's one thing that really gets me about D&D Twitter is everybody and their brother acts like they bought the original 10 chainmail set books.
Right.
And I'm sorry, but their initial print run was like 10,000 copies. And if you go on Twitter, you will meet everyone who ever bought one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I will absolutely 100% own up to not having a copy of original D&D until the early 2000s. I wanted one, but I didn't get it. And the Dungeon Hobby Shop. You remember? Did you ever get like the basic sets, like the magenta? And okay, you remember
the expert set,
the Your Gateway to Adventure catalog, all the way in the back. There was a little place where you could order stuff from the Dungeon Hobby Shop, and really until the late 80s. And I was floored to find out that it lasted in stock this long. But until the late 80s, you could still order just from them. You could still order original D&D. So I think a lot of us who will proudly wave our OD&D sets around, yes, we are very much Johnny-come-latelys. When you talk about somebody who says, "Oh, I started playing OD&D with original," that's a very rarefied group who can say that.
Narrow. I got them in the mid '80s because the hobby shop had them, and at the time I was buying everything. I was lucky. I had a good group. I mean, funny thing is one of the star football players was part of our group, and we had girls that played with us, and we had a pretty good. There was like 8 of us that played. And so my girlfriend would buy them for me for like presents and stuff.
Nice.
And yeah, I mean, I still remember our DM. She came in and sat down and said, "I want you guys to all make characters because you're gonna die." And we're like, "What?" And she just flipped it up, and it just said it was I6 Ravenloft, and she tapped it, and she goes,
"Whoa!
All of you will die." And we're like, "Oh, we've done Tomb of Horrors like 5 times. We can take this thing." Yeah, my paladin landed right up until the time Strahd shoved my own sword in my face. So.
Yeah, it is. Pete, a lot of people lean heavy on the melodrama and the romance of I6, and they don't really remember that, yes, it is pretty much, it is a character processor. Characters go in one end, and a thin red slurry comes out the other end,
Yeah, and everybody was like, "Oh, I played it and we had fun." I was like, "No, you didn't. The first time you ran in there doing your murder hope was shtick, and Strahd threw you out an 8-story window and into a room."
Oh, us. Yeah, we got down to the kitchen with the Igor character, and I think it was just like a random encounter right in that room, and that was the end of us. The single time that I played through it as a player back before the earth cooled.
But I will say it did change the way that me and her wrote adventures after that.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I definitely think a truly good or great module can do that. It can really shape how you approach your design. I mean, I've said this before that when I wrote stuff for Gary on the Iggsburg project, my design documents were the classic modules in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Those were my templates, my road guards, if you will. So I can definitely understand how I6 could kind of grab a hold of you and do that. So I6, clearly, you're a classics man, a man after my own heart. You won't find it; it's in a jar buried somewhere. So you you played all the way, I'm guessing 80s into the 90s. You
2000s,
watched
2010s. I played it right.
Excellent. So you watched it evolve, but then you took the big plunge. You became a writer and a tester for 3rd edition. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us how that went down.
I applied for a job with Wizards back when they were first moving. They moved to Seattle.
Okay.
And I actually walked away from it. A lot of people don't realize. I mean, Wizards was hiring, and all kinds of people went in there. And you talk about out of place. I mean, I was wearing a flannel shirt and Levi jeans and combat boots, and everybody else. There was actually a guy wearing a Star Trek uniform, waiting to interview for a job.
Oh, I can absolutely believe it. I've read the what is it, slaying the dragon or slaying the Minotaur article. It was in Wired many years ago. But so you're there. You're getting ready to apply.
Yeah, and I was almost up, and I was like, you know what? I'm listening to these people talk, and I'm like, I can't do this. These are the most insufferable people I've met in my life. And I got up and went across the street to the bar and called my friend's house where my wife was. And I was like, you need to come get me. She's like, how'd your job interview go? I said, I'll explain it. Yeah, I just started buying whiskey. And I left and got a job at the cannery. I was like, no, I'm not working with these people. And
There you
but
go.
for some reason, I kept, I was on the forums and stuff like that, and I get this email, and it's like, hey, do you want to be part of the early testing for a project for Wizards of the Coast? You got to sign NDAs. I'm like, yeah. I actually had to get the NDAs because 3.0 was under heavy NDA.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny because I got asked, so why am I getting chosen for this? And they go, well, you put on your job application that you had a top secret security clearance, so you can abide by non-disclosure agreement rules. I'm like, yeah, sure. And I was like, hey, I've got some friends, a really close group. Can they get in on? They're like, do you vouch for them? I'm like, yeah, we live in the middle of the sticks. And if I tell them to keep their mouth shut, they'll keep their mouth shut. Half of them are vets, so they let me get a group together. I was play testing, is it playing it, and I noticed a really weird thing. A lot of people that were on the testing groups didn't play; they theory crafted, and I got in huge arguments with them. And I'm like, look, this stuff sounds great, but in play, it doesn't work worth a damn. And then it was supposed to come out, and I remember the guys who made the creature collection were building their world, and they were going to release the creature collection 1 and 2, and they were going to release it right at the same time as 3.0 released. And they released the original creature collection before the monster manual release. And if you look at the original printing, you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
I released the player's handbook had been out, and I released my first book. It was the player's handbook was out. I think the Dungeon Master's Guide, but the monster manual wasn't out yet. And I was one of the first people to release a handbook.
We are paused. Nordic, he is talking about 3rd edition, the beta for 3rd edition.
Yeah, the 3rd edition beta. Yeah, and then I released it, and then I was working with a third-party publisher because I'm lazy. I don't like doing everything. I don't like putting myself out there. I've actually put myself more out there doing this writing than I have ever. I'm one of those people that way back when I had a thing. I was like, the thing with hiring me to do freelance for you is you don't put my name on the book. Not now, not ever. You have me in your file system saying, hey, he wrote for us. But here's what happens. You give me my paycheck and I go away. You don't hear from me ever again unless you contact me. And that actually worked for a lot of publishers. They were like, okay, we like this because, I didn't talk online. Other people, they had problems with, oh, I'm working with this project with, Green Ronin, and it's going to be really cool, and I'm doing guns. And Green Ronin would be like, will you shut up? And with me, it was like they gave me my money, and I went away, and I never said anything. And like, hey, do you want to go out there? No. Do you want to go on? No. Do you want to make foreign put? No. I did my work, and I left. And I wrote, God, how many did I write? I must have wrote at least a dozen things for the original Die 20. And then the company I was with, talk about jacked me up. They had me buy. They were like, hey, another publisher wants to adapt your stuff, and they wanna publish it. I'm like, okay, what's wrong with the main one? Well, they're gonna do hardback imprint. Can you redo this for 3.5? And I'm like, yeah. And I redid it, and I gave them half the book. And I was like, where's my money? And they went, well, you'll get paid, when we deliver. I'm like, no. I found out through my contacts that you were paid a $50,000 advance. Where's my $50,000? And they're like, well, we don't have the money exactly. I'm like, where's my money? And I was like, and they were like, well, you need to give it to us. Your contract. And I said, no. You have $50,000. You owe me $50,000. And don't think I won't drive to Canada and put a gun in your mouth. And I wasn't joking either. I was like, $50,000 is enough for me to go to Canada and put a gun in your mouth. And I said, I know where you live. And they stopped talking to me, and they got mad at me. They were like, "Oh, he screwed us over." No, I didn't screw you over. You got $50,000 advance for my work. Bugged me, got on my ass about it until I rebuilt the expansion for 3.5. And then the publisher was like, "Where's the book?" And you're like, "We don't have it," because they gave them the previews I gave them. They're like, "This stuff is great," and I wouldn't turn over the rest of it, and they got really pissy. And it's one of the reasons I left is because so many people were rip-off artists. I mean, and there was so many people, they had their own little groups and their own little cliques and everything. And I was like, you guys suck, man. What happened to the game? What happened to writing for the game? Well, this is business. Well, where's my paycheck? Yeah. The last straw was the RPG Now leak. I don't know if you remember that.
I may have had my focus elsewhere at the time. I mean, I came back to D&D in the late 90s, but I didn't really start working in it until I started working for Gary in like 2004. And some of my audience may not. So why don't you go ahead and fill us in on that?
RPG Now was originally where it sold. I mean, I've been around. I have been around to I've been around long enough that my RPG Now account is like one of the first 100 or so. And right. And somebody hacked them and released the database of the sales numbers of everybody. And see, I had been telling, you only sold like 10 this month. You have heard of it. I saw that look on your face. You have.
So yes, I did, but from an outsider's perspective, the civilians, for lack of a better term, we were told, oh yes, there was a leak, and it's customer data. That it was. Your addresses, your mailing addresses, possibly credit card data. So if it was their sales data and it was getting back to creators, I can definitely see why they would want to take the L and say, "Oh no, it was customer data."
Yeah, It was. I mean, I got an email from a Hotmail drop. It was obviously a drop. And it said, "Hey, you might want to look at your products." I'm like, "What the hell?" And I'm like, you know what? I loaded it up on a Windows Me machine and opened the document, and I saw my sales numbers. And I was absolutely livid. I mean, I went cold and prickly staring at those sales numbers. And I hadn't been paid for some of this stuff. Yet I was told it hadn't sold enough. And I'm looking. And then I was like, so let me get this straight. You would rather not have gold and silver seller put on that book so that you can avoid paying me. Oh, well, it's business, man. I'm like, I'm coming to Canada to shoot you in the face.
in Minecraft, YouTube. In Minecraft. He's going to Canada in Minecraft to do that.
I was like, oh, no, you don't. I mean, I was out of the car. Someone's get the car ready. And she's like, "Where are you going?" I explained to her. She goes, "No, you're going to go in the house and sit down." Took the keys. I was like, she goes, "I'll call the sheriff. And there's only one way off this. There's only one way out of here. So he'll block the road." And I was like, I was so mad. I mean, I was paid once for a best-selling product, and to the tune of $400, which sounds like a lot. Until you realize I was supposed to get $200. I was supposed to get $2 a sale.
Right. No, I did a book that my co-author paid me for right around the same time. I understand. I understand. My co-author, who's a great guy, paid me for my work because the publisher never paid me.
Yeah.
And I wrote half of a book. I wrote half of Elemental Moon with Lance Havermail, and Necromancer Games never paid. I had to buy a physical copy myself. A couple of years ago, I finally got a physical copy. I never even had a physical copy of it. So it's to a far lesser extent, but I understand where you're coming from. And I wish I could say to you, I wish I could say, that this is as you say, it's kind of a new thing. That it isn't.
No, no.
It is not. I mean, we've had Sandy Peterson, right? Of course.
Kinda.
Yeah, Sandy has been on the show, and everybody kind of has this funhouse mirror idea of the AD&D deities and demigods story. Oh, TSR got sued. TSR sued some people. Lovecraft's relatives sued TSR, and that sort of
I heard
thing.
it was less suing and more contacting with, hey, you didn't have the rights to this, and we don't appreciate it. So can you do a reprint without it?
Close. You're very close. Jim Ward wrote it and asked Chaosium, hey, can I put this stuff in there? And they were like, that's cool. That's really awesome. The idea of Cthulhu and Elric being in AD&D is awesome. The people the people who controlled TSR's business, not Gary, but the people who controlled the business, who are Brian and Kevin Bloom, after the first print run, Chaosium came back and said, hey, could you put a little line in the book thanking us for this? And Jim was like, absolutely no problem. And then the Blooms got a copy of the reprinted versions and were like, nope, take it out. We're not advertising somebody else's stuff in our books.
See, I was big on that. I was huge on that when I was writing Die 20 stuff. I was always like, hey, do you want to use my mechanics? You want me to use yours?
Oh, yeah.
And I'd have advertisements. Well, God, I still do it. If you look at my novels nowadays, you go all the way to the back, you'll see I advertise for other writers. And I was always big on, let's work together. And everybody started screwing each other. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done with everybody. I'm done with all of you, and I hope you all go to hell.
Right. And I mean, ostensibly, it should be that we can all work together with a sense of community like that. But unfortunately, the wild and woolly tales are all there. But it's interesting to kind of hop back a little bit. You were talking about third editions, and my co-host on Wednesday nights, Kyle Schuant, we have the nom de guerre BNGs, bitter non-gamers, for the people who'll sit and just theory craft about TTRPGs, but not actually enact any of the stuff.
And they are always the worst about it. They're like, oh.
Yeah. And I said, I once got into it. Now, maybe we want to hear your stories, but I want to tell you this because I want to ask you a question about this. I got into it once upon a time with Ryan Dancy about...
You're not the only one.
I got into him with it. But, he came into a forum that we were posting on, and this was well after his tenure at any tabletop gaming company. But he posted in and said, all of you guys that want to play first edition AD&D set in Greyhawk, you don't want AD&D. You think you do, but you don't want AD&D. What you actually want in your brain is, and he named some weird ass story game.
Are we allowed to cuss on? Are we allowed to cuss on this?
A little tiny bit.
The best thing is telling Ryan Dancy, eat a dick.
Richard. But so his contention was that people who played D&D, old school D&D, were looking for something that wasn't there. And so he promulgated this idea in his conversation that Advanced Dungeons and Dragons is strictly a mechanical exercise, that there is no role-playing element to the game, that players themselves don't imagine into it, which, I mean, role-playing is imagination. But when I got him down to specifics, he says there's no mechanics that reward good role-playing. First edition AD&D has 3 pages on XP delineation, and if you role play badly, it costs you.
Categorize it between 1 and 4.
Categorize it between 1 and 4, ESFP.
Yep.
And I told him that, And you've seen the meme of the guy who does like that, and then the camera fades him out. That was basically what he didn't even say, "Oh, you know what? You're right." Oh, Volcano God. No. This is not Raven McCracken. This is this is Ralts Bloodthorne. I put a link up to his stuff, and thank you for the super, Volcano God.
I did interact with Zach way back when he was on N-World and somewhere else way back where he was really that famous.
I'm sorry, you really broke up there.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I'm like 10 feet. I'm like 5 feet from my computer. I don't know how it's breaking up. I interacted with Zach when he was on N-World way back in the day, and I think he was on Nutkin Land too.
I only know the gentleman third hand, but anyway, yeah. So I realized right then, you yourself, just off the top of the dome, I don't think you have a Dungeon Master's Guide handy. And even if you do, I don't think you have that page bookmarked so you could have flipped it open and said categorize 1 to 4. But just off the top of my dome, as soon as the chief architect of 3rd edition started talking about AD&D, and I realized, you never understood the game, brother. You didn't know how it worked. You're the one that had some idealized idea of what AD&D was, and because that didn't suit your little peer group and the people who filled out the 3x5 cards for you when you guys took Ars Magica and bolted it to Strength, Intelligence, Wisdom, Dexterity, Constitution, Charisma, that's why your game worked the way it did. Am I correct about that? With you?
Pretty much. Oh God, I hate naming names when I talk bad about people. But
no. I mean, you can speak in generalities. I'm not gonna pin you down.
He was not the genius everybody thought he was. It really showed during Die 20 Modern.
Okay.
I got in huge arguments with a lot of the people that were doing Die 20 Modern. I mean, and it was like, this is the problem. And they're like, yes, but then it'll be indestructible. And I'm like, a tank is indestructible.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody's like, well, I did one in Desert Storm and it got inoff. I said, your antenna got shut off. Shut the hell up. And it went from there. I went round and round with a lot of people. I got an argument with, oh God, he's short. He's a redhead. He made his own systems. He left Wizards about 2008. One of the architects of Die 20, I cannot think of his name, but he was
not Peter Adkinson. I don't think Adkinson.
No. Monty Cook.
Monty Cook. Okay.
Monty Cook irritated the hell out of me during the design phase.
Okay.
I was like, these feats are worthless. It gives you +3 hit points. That's it. That's a worthless feat. Well, maybe they ought to read it and have system mastery. I'm like, it's just now coming out. Nobody's going to have system mastery. You don't have system mastery. And it was like, well, I guess they'll have to read it. And it's like, why are you laying traps for players already? That's not fun. And they're like, well, you're a beta tester. And I'm like, oh. I got in a lot of arguments with people. I mean, mainly because I'm very much player empowerment. I'm a combination of a power gamer and a story gamer at the same time, using one E. I am fine with a 15th level paladin with a holy sword. I'm fine with that.
Well, and that's we had an interesting discussion last night, and this is not for you to worry about, but I actually lost a subscriber on YouTube, and I hope it wasn't because I was going hard in the paint on this, but I believe that the best DMing is adversarial DMing, not to the point of driving players away from your table, but of making the game enough of a challenge that when the players overcome what you present to them, that they really feel like they pulled something off. They really overcame something in a game sense. Because, if If you're learning to play poker, you're never going to learn to play poker if the person you're playing poker against constantly holds their cards up so they're facing out to you. So I, as a DM, believe in adversarial DM. Oh, Kabuki, I lost her again. In adversarial DMing. But with that said, with what you're saying about quote unquote power gaming, if the players have earned that, if they clawed their way up to being a 15, I mean, Paladin in AD&D, and oh boy, don't get me on my bicycle about how Paladins were mutated into meaninglessness.
I'll go on about it for hours because
well, you've seen me post on Twitter. Like I will drop a post about Paladins and be Paladins, lawful good humans that meet these stats only ever, and just the flames.
Oh yeah, but I did that. I played a 1E Paladin from the minute I cracked open the player's handbook, and I looked at my dice and I was like, I qualified for this, and my DM was watching when I rolled my stats, and talk about a good day. I didn't get anything. I mean, with her watching, using the recommended, 4d6, take the best 3 that was in the book, and a lot of people argue it's not there, but it is. There's all kinds of ways to make your characters in the books.
Yeah, there's like 4 there's 4 methods in the AD&D DMG, and 4d6 discard lowest arranged to taste is the recommended method.
But straight down the line, I didn't have anything less than a 16.
Wow.
And for strength at 18, and I rolled it, and it was a double aught, and she stares at me, and she looks at me, and she looks at the character sheet, she looks at me, and she goes, I'm going to ride your ass like a bobsled. And I looked through the book, and I said, I'm going to play a paladin. And she, read the paladin, because, we were pretty much starting out. This is my first character. Mm-hmm. And she looked at it, and she goes, you know what? There's a lot of restrictions to this. So she goes, I'll warn you if you as a player are about to do something that will violate the Paladin Code. And I ran out and got a book on King Arthur and, the quest for the Holy Grail and Lancelot, and read all that stuff and played it like that. And I got that character to 17th level.
And there you go. If you had an adversarial DM and you towed the line when it came to your alignment, your behaviors in game, and so on, and you reach that level, absolutely, the players have earned that as much as they've earned their ignominious ends. If they're like, hey, this big green devil face on the wall has a black hole in the middle, let's walk through that. I mean, it is that is the reward. That is the carrot part of the stick and carrot of adversarial DMing. So I'm glad you and I are on the same page there, at least I think.
I'm very adversarial when it comes to the party's opponents, and when it comes to the NPCs. I mean, when I'm DMing, sometimes I'll be like, you know what, never mind. But a lot of times, most of the time, I don't pull punches. But the fun thing I will say one thing about playing on Roll20 playing online. There's no fudging your dice. You can't fudge your dice. You make that roll, and it's right out there in the open, and everybody knows what it is. So there's no fudging, and which means it's playing on Roll20 is let the dice fall where they may. And so far, we went from Pathfinder to Rifts and then to 1E AD&D, and everybody is enjoying the sheer brutality and lethalness.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's part and parcel. Hey, T-shirted historian there says this is I think you've worked with T-shirted. That is the man who first got me to do work in TTRPGs. I worked with him, so there you go.
And you can probably remember I was hard-nosed about a lot of stuff. Shin, you would be surprised how many people crawl into the demon face.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we're looking for an evil wizard. That's obviously a tunnel of some kind. We cast detect evil. Oh, it radiates evil, all right. He's in there.
Yes. We got lucky. We stuck a 10-foot pole in there, and the pole went zap, and we went, yeah, let's not go that way. Yeah, exactly. I can honestly say I have never had I've run the module a few times. I've never had a group fall for it, and it's one of those things like. It's the opening crawl to Star Wars. It's the transporter sound
from Star Trek. It's leave the gun, bring the cannoli. It's culturally, it's part of our geek cultural zeitgeist that you will find few who will walk into it, but they're enough that they're memorable.
But when it first came out, a lot of people walked into it.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I picked this set. I don't know if you can see this, the Art and Arcana Visual History set.
Nice.
But it is a giant art book of Dungeons and Dragons art, all the way from back when Tracy Lesh, he's a buddy of mine, was working on original D&D art, all the way through to 5th edition. But included in the deluxe set is Gary's original I carry this around with me if people want to play a really tough adventure with high level characters version that Tracy did the illustrations for prior to TSR actually publishing it. So the one that you get in there is the actual set. And I can imagine those early days at Origins in, 75, 76, people walking right up and doing exactly that. Hey, I cast Detect Evil. It radiates evil. We're here to fight an evil lich. He must be through that door.
Yeah, I mean, and plus, a lot of people don't realize we had no idea what Akarak was. I mean, when we got there and he was a skull with some gems sitting on a pile of dust and treasure, we had no idea what was about to happen to us. And that's the big thing, is a lot of these people that came into D&D later and they talk all this mad smack, they have no idea that the Fiend Folio wasn't out when we did some of this. I mean, oh God, let me look up the dates, but the Drow were a complete shock.
Yeah. I can imagine, because you got that little hint. You got that faint hint in the monster manual. There are stories about elves that live underground and are as dark and evil as the ones who live in the forests are fair and kind, but they're just rumors. And then you get G1. Okay, what's going on here? G2. Wait a second. G3. Holy crap. Yeah. And then the D series rolls out.
Yeah. And back then, I mean, sure, I was a Johnny come lately. We weren't playing it until the very early 80s, like 81, 82, 83. Mm-hmm. And, mainly it was in 83, it was D1 to 2 that caught our eye. And we played it. And we had no idea the Drow were out there. And we'd encountered them once, and we didn't really realize they were a subset. But you find them in A2, Secret of the Slaver Stockade.
Yes. And they are buying slaves, and one of the prime slave lords is a Drow herself.
She's an albino. She's the one doing all the experiments on the elves. She's an albino Drow.
Well, I was thinking all the way at the end of A4. One of the prime slave lords that you fight at the end of A4. But yes, the Drow abound in the A series. So,
and we had no clue. We had no clue at all. And we ran into them, and it was a nasty fight. We did Queen of the Demon Web Pits. And we talk about lucky we had a paladin.
Right.
I was like, my character's going to die here. And we finished that fight. I think I had under 10 hit points left at the end of that fight against Wolf.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. She is one bad cookie.
One of the last actions is she disintegrated my holy sword. I was so mad.
I'm kind of surprised she was she's a demigoddess, so yeah, she would have been able to do it.
Yeah, she was able to breach. She was able to breach the 15 or 20 foot radius anti-magic zone. But she got us away from each other, because normally they'd crowd up next to me on something like that, and she spit. I know our DM modded her, because me and my co-DM, we modded everything, and I know now that Wolf does not spit caustic web spells that do 1d4 points of damage around.
No, she does.
Oh, does she?
She absolutely does. She in spider form. She can't in human. She can't in human or Drow form. But yes, in spider form, she can.
Yep.
skeet out the webs that will damage you for 1 to 4.
Sure, I could rip my way out because at the time I had a girdle of storm giant storm. I could rip my way out of that, but the rest of the party had to scatter or got tangled up. And for a little bit, it was just me versus her. And I was like, I'm gonna die here. And our wizard was like, we're gonna die here. I'm like, yeah. Fun times though, And my group now, they are loving the fact I took them through Keep on the Borderlands, and then they went through the first one, Slade Pits in the Undercity, and now they're going through Secret of the Slaver Stockade, and they just finished off the blind dude with a nasty fight, and they just finished off the drow chick, the albino drow, and now they're getting ready to clear out the rest of it because they saw that stockade and like, can we have this? And I'm like, fine, clear it out, you can keep it. And
well, we are our Tuesday game. We're actually playing that. I've got the upper section. I don't know if you've ever caught any of the live streams.
I've seen some of them. I spend a lot of time writing. I spend a lot.
Which better use of your time. If you have that to do, but I've got the upper stockade laid out on the table in Dwarven Forge, but don't give my players any ideas about laying claim to the fort, please. I don't think any of them are watching right now, but just in case. So you like so many of us, you've had these great experiences with AD&D, but I have to pause here, and I would put this up on screen if the person who had asked it would ask in the chat, but I can't because he didn't. But there is a super from T-shirted who said, Bill, I'm glad to see you have Ralts on the stream tonight, and Ralts, you better be on my stream next. All caps.
Send me a DM.
Sounds to me like you're in trouble if you don't. So I don't want to. I don't want to get in the way there. But let's see. The question, and I'm not going to say who it's from because he didn't ask in the chat, is ask you about the Year of the Zombie.
Oh man. I wrote that. Die 20 Modern came out, and actually I had the playtest rules, and I'm in IRC, and I am talking mad shit about how people need to get off their asses and just make stuff. And I was watching, out of the corner of my eye, I'm watching Dawn of the Dead out of the corner of my eye. And this is before they released the new Dawn of the Dead.
Okay.
I know it was the old one. I remember specifically it was the old one. And someone was like, God, you talk so much shit all the time. Fine, do it. Make a Die 20 Modern campaign setting for zombies. And I was like, I could do that. And I did it. I had some help. I will admit I had some help. And it wasn't a very big team. I'll be honest, I did most of the work. And I wrote, all total, before I walked away from the company and said, you need to unlist my stuff and never contact me again. Because you haven't paid me anything. And you're screwing me over and releasing other people's stuff before mine. And it was a huge thing, and because they didn't want to take attention from the other ones, from the other people, and I wrote "You're the Zombie," and I wrote at the end of it, I had close to 75 add-ons to it. I mean, all kinds of stuff, everything from modules. I had probably I took inspiration from the whole Giant series and wrote a 10 module series that started before the zombie outbreak, and then took everybody through this collapsing country, and then getting home, and then doing all this stuff, and it was huge. I mean, I think it clocked out when I put them all together. I think it clocked out at just over the 10 modules clocked out to just over 1,500 pages, and I wrote Slavers 1, 2, and 3. I wrote Reavers 1, 2, and 3, and 4. I wrote Survivor's Guide to Risen America 1 through, I think, 40. I wrote 40 Survivor's Guide to Risen America. I pick a random place on the map and write about it. I did power groups. I think I did 6 of those. Traders, as in trade, as in making trade. I wrote trading groups, how to trade, how to use the wealth system in a post-apocalyptic game a little bit better. Oh God, at the time I was talking to Darren Rader like on the phone, if you know who he is.
I know the name.
I got permission from like RPG objects and stuff, an RPG check to include their stuff with mine and reference their stuff with mine, and to hopefully build on everybody else's stuff because uh, everybody was always coming onto the forums and asking me this, that, and the other thing to clarify this and clarify that. And I was thinking, a lot of people are coming in here and buying it when I've supposedly sold less than 100 copies. And then I found out that everything I had written had come out in print form, and I had never received a single one. And my
Yeah.
artist found out that the publisher was taking his artwork and bundling it up into artwork books and also making calendars and hadn't paid him a dime. So I was like, never contact me again unless you've got a large check. And that's what broke me. That's where I was like, you know what? This is the second time I've been ripped off for probably tens of thousands of dollars. And I'm done with the tabletop RPG publishing scene. I am done with it. I'm finished with it. And but I wrote You're the Zombie. It was popular enough that I went to a couple conventions and people cosplayed.
Wow.
As the characters. Becca was a big one because Becca was a big girl, big muscular girl. She was written as she was bulky, and there'd be muscle girls that would be and Becca's outfit was funny because she wore coveralls. She didn't wear she looked more like Jason Voorhees than she did like a bikini or anything. But yeah, people would cosplay as some of the characters. It was funny because I had people accusing me. It was after like the third or fourth book came out, and they accused me of copying Rick Grimes from The Walking Dead with Sam from You're the Zombie, and I was like, what the hell was The Walking Dead? And it was before it was a TV show, so. And I was like, oh, so he wrote a comic book. Well, good for him. It just went on because Rick Grimes and Sam are a lot different. Sam was an Old West fan, real Old West fan, and he was a fast draw. He was really good at the fast draw, and he viewed himself as like Judge Dredd of the zombie apocalypse. I am the law.
Right.
And Rick Grimes, not so much. Vosberg. Vosberg Super Fortress. It was originally written by RPG Objects as Vosberg Supermax, and I got permission from RPG Objects and the writer of Vosberg Supermax to turn it into a fortress. And inside the fortress, a lot of the prisoners weren't there anymore, and outside of it was a settlement. And the people who lived in the fortress didn't care if zombies came across the desert and attacked the people around it. That's their problem. And they would toss down knives and like you say, toss down knives and sandwiches. They would have sniper races because these guys are all amoral as hell. Because I went with the standard, Night of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, where people all turned into scumbags, and
right.
And they would have sniper races where they just get a sniper rifle and they start shooting random people in the settlement below them from the wall to see who could kill the most people the fastest in 60 seconds. It was completely different than anything anybody had put out. And it was different. It was a different time too, because some of the stuff I wrote nowadays would have people have absolute kittens.
It's unfortunately, I mean, it's really kind of outside of our realm, but I am going to say this because I think you and I are on the same sheet of music on that. And I will just say this, and then I want to ask you, I want to talk a little bit about your fiction. I think we're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel on that subject.
I think so too.
I think culturally we're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel on that, and I hope we're able to shake that off at least a little bit.
The Trader Source book actually got me a call from Wizards of the Coast, and I pretty much said, I pretty much want you to dig because because in Traders I had the value of all kinds of stuff for the post-apocalypse. But there was a sidebar, and it said there's one thing that is constantly replenishable in the wasteland, and that's sex. And I had the wealth value of various sexual acts and various condition of those people, and they were very unhappy with that. And I had it again in Slavers, and they're like, you need to think really hard about whether you want to put out that out there. I'm like, have you ever read any post-apocalyptic fiction aside from My Little Pony falls in a hole? No, shut up. And yeah, teacher historian is right. It would make people wet their pants at the stuff that I wrote on You're the Zombie. I mean, it was absolutely. I didn't pull anything at all. I actually uploaded at one time. I uploaded a video of me using a chainsaw on a deer carcass to see just how applicable a chainsaw was to the zombie apocalypse. And you know what? It's not.
Oh no, it's something like that. I mean, I I've tried to use a chainsaw to clear underbrush, and it gets caught on everything.
Yeah,
It'll get caught on everything. I mean, yeah, stuff like Army of Darkness and so on. They're goofy fun, but let's face it, if you had to do it, you wouldn't want to do it with that.
Yeah.
So like you said, at this point, you've put a match to it. RPG writing's in your rear view. Did you immediately start working on fiction, or was there kind of a cool down period before you got into prose?
There was a long time before I got into prose. There was
okay.
I helped a friend do some stuff under a pen name. I helped him do some stuff, and he lost the rights to it because a surprise, a indie publisher ripped him off and got the rights to his stuff, and he didn't pay attention. He paid attention to the contract, but the publisher just stopped contacting him. The publisher has the rights to it for another 10 years, and he can't even write in his own setting. He can't publish it. He can't do anything with it. And I was like, wow, that's a good reason not to write anymore. And I quit writing for a little while. But I actually fell into it by accident.
Okay. So tell us about the falling.
Well, COVID had just started. I live in the Midwest. People who have heard me on other shows have heard me talk about it. I live in the Midwest, and I live where the Midwest's zero outbreak, patient zero outbreaks were, which was one of the units nearby had come back from China, and right afterwards people started getting sick, and COVID was happening in China. But we were here. It hit here in the state I live, and nobody knew what it was at the time, because I went into the VA and I'm like, I can't breathe. I feel like my lungs are full of it. Was before Christmas. And I was like, it feels like my lungs are full of glue and I don't know what's going on. And they're like, it's pneumonia. I'm like, no, I've had pneumonia again. Look at my medical records. I've had pneumonia 3 times. This is not pneumonia. Pneumonia is wet. This is glue. And, so I got COVID early. But then, everybody was stressed and everything, and I was looking for something to do, and a friend of mine went, hey, you like sci-fi, why don't you take a look at Reddit/HFY? And I read a couple stories, and I was like, hey, this is cool. And I noticed in the comments a lot of people were, a little stressed. And I remember I still had on my hard drive this goofy old story I'd written. I wrote it in 1990, 1991, right around there. I don't know when exactly, because it's 30 years ago, hello. And I had it copied to a hard drive, and I ran it through Word real quick to fix the spelling, and I uploaded it, and I was like, I really enjoyed posting that up there. And they had basically a writing prompt. I was like, I could do that, but how about if I do it a little differently? And so I wrote the first one I put up there was Bethok eats an ice cream cone, and then I put up Born Whole, and then I just started writing, and it was just in my brain of, what if aliens encountered humans, but they kept encountering us in different ways? Like, first they encounter cyborgs, then they encounter regular humans, then they encounter, biomods, and they think we're like 8 separate races at first. And people were like, this is amazing, keep writing. And I kept writing, and people were like, hey, I wake up to read this. And by the middle of the pandemic, when all the lockdowns were going on, and they were talking about don't let them lie to you. They used to say they were telling us at one point we might be locked down for years.
Oh yeah, no, I remember it
And
well. That's why I started this channel.
and people were terrified.
Yeah, much like you, I wanted to reach out to people and do something nice. Well, here we are.
But and it's really funny because you can actually if you look in the old Reddit timeline, you can actually see where I got hit by lightning.
Yeah,
it went through my house and got me. It jumped across the front room and one of the other rooms, and it cracked the window behind me. It took out the monitor. It took out the TV. It took out my computer. It and it left burns. I got metal implants, and it left burns there. And the neighbor called the cops because they were like, "Oh my God, a lightning went through his house." And the cops were all like, "Do you want an ambulance?" I'm like, "Nah." But anyway, but this was coming out of my brain. I don't write this in a traditional sense. It's all stream of consciousness. I mean, a lot of times I write in fugue states. I'll sit down and I'll put the title, and I'll put the links and close my eyes, and I'll open them, and I'm staring at the submitted completed post on Reddit, and I'm like, I wrote this. And I wrote it, and at first I didn't have a Patreon. I didn't have a PayPal. I wasn't even thinking about publishing the books. And then people started telling me, hey, there's people putting up fake Patreons. So I put up a Patreon, and I was surprised by the support I was getting. And I was like, hey, this will let me quit my shitty job, and while I'm doing security. And I put the books up for publishing, and people started buying them. And I finished the First Contact / Behold Humanity story late last year, earlier this year. It topped out at over 1,000 chapters.
Wow.
And so when you look online, it's if you look at the series, it says, "Oh yeah, by the way, the series is finished, so you don't have to worry about me not finishing this huge series." And
come on, Ralts, man. Look, who's going to start some epic fiction series and spend years on it and then not finish it? That is completely preposterous. I don't think you needed to have said that.
You would be surprised. I mean, I've gotten a little bit into the publishing side, and there are people who will say, "Oh, this is going to be a trilogy," and they'll release their first book, and it'll be on a cliffhanger. But if it doesn't sell well enough, they don't bother with the second or third book, leaving the readers hanging.
I was taking a straight shot at George R. R. Martin with that. So
I know you're taking a shot at Fat Gandalf. You need to shut the hell up and write a book.
Please don't sully the name of a Tolkien character by giving it to him.
Right.
How about Fat Dumbledore? Can we go Fat Dumbledore? Fat Dumbledore.
Dumbledore could at least finish something. He finished a lot of them kids' little asses. But no, I mean he's like budget. He's like, I don't know. And I watch his interviews like, oh, I can't finish it, and I'm like, well, I couldn't finish your series either because you're the most depressing, sad sack writer I've ever seen. I don't care about taxes. And I can't stand him. I literally can't stand him. That people like him are why I don't go to conventions.
Not a fan.
But
so you've got, and I put the link, by the way, up on the screen, guys. You can you can check that out. Jump right in there and buy that. So
oh, and you don't get chapters. You don't get me repeating every book, chapters and chapters of technobabble, because it's like, how does the hyperdrive work? I don't know. I'm a hyperdrive engineer. You press the button and it goes. You want to buy it or not?
And that, that is my, again, to reference my co-host who's not here to defend himself, but we've had a long talk about that from a gaming standpoint of, he's a big fan of Traveller. You ever play Traveller?
Oh, yeah. I played Traveller. I played Star Frontiers. I played the original Star Frontiers, and I loved that. And I was always mad that we never got to find out the rest of the information on the Sathar. They
left us in. I love Jim Ward to pieces. He was a great guy. I love talking to Jim. But darn it, Jim, you should have given us the Sathar homeworld, man.
I know.
But no. The comment that Kyle though talks about knowing things, it's like, why does X work? there's in Traveler, you get players who'll say, "Oh, what's this planet's resonance? What is what is its frequency? What is this? What is that?" And Kyle says, it's incumbent on the game master, the referee, and Traveler to just fold his arms and say, "Do you know it?"
Yeah.
Then it's not important for your character to know, is it?
Well, like I told somebody, they were like, "Oh, you need to explain this stuff." And I said, "You know what? You're on camera. I can see you. I can see what you're looking at, the reflection on your glasses. I will PayPal you $50. I will PayPal you $50 if you can tell me how an electric motor works."
I will work on that while we talk, man. I really need $50.
I know how it works. I can just do it off the top of my head.
Damn it.
It requires the windings around the bushes and the magnets. But this person went, "Well, what does that have to do with anything?" I said, "If you can't explain to me how an electric motor works, or the fact that you can use an electric motor as an alternator and create electricity from it."
Yes, you can.
That I don't want to hear about. I need to explain lasers. And my stuff takes place 8,000 years in the future. If we can understand their science would be like magic.
Yeah, and I mean, it's I appreciate hard SF from a literary standpoint, and I appreciate good trappings. Were you a fan of or are you a fan of the late David Drake?
Yeah, yeah. I got lucky. I got to talk to him a few times on email.
Oh gosh, lucky. I love David Drake. Love David Drake's work.
He was in 11th ACR. And
yeah, he was that rarest of beasts. He was a tanker in Vietnam.
Yep. And he was in 11th ACR, and I was stationed near 11th ACR, and I actually wrote to him once to ask him a few questions.
Oh,
when I was writing Die 20 Future, he gave me permission to convert Seas of Venus and Redliners to Die 20 Future.
Neat.
And I spent all the time doing that, and my publisher never put it out, and I was so goddamn mad.
Oh, that is a shame. I loved. Well, I mean, I still love them, but I loved reading Drake's work for the first time, and this I'm going somewhere with this, I promise.
Okay.
That ties back in to that idea of. I think David Drake was one of those rarer authors who didn't want to sit down and give you an astrophysics lesson. Because I had a point with some of the classic sci-fi authors, and look, listeners, readers, watchers, don't send me hate mail. I'm not insulting them. I'm not saying they were bad, but I just kind of hit a point where I just wanted to look at the Asimov or the Heinlein, although he was a little less guilty of it, or the Clark book that I was reading, and just say, "Sir, I don't have a degree in higher maths. No, that doesn't make any sense to me." But Drake, he explained how a power gun worked.
Yeah.
But what he didn't do was go into you didn't get physics equations on how it worked. He just, you hit copper that is aligned in a certain way in a plastic matrix with a charge of voltage, and it flashes straight into plasma and shoots out the end of the gun. And 13-year-old me, when I picked up a copy of Hammer Slammers, went, "That's kickin' rad."
Hammer Slammers. I remember I read a book that he wrote where they actually figured out because of volcanic explosion. Because a volcanic explosion killed a bunch of people with basically power gun bolts. Yes,
naturally occurring power gun bolts. And it was a that was the kind of hard SF that appealed to me as a kid. Not Drake the musician, dungeon minister, David Drake the military sci-fi author. I know better than that.
I'll admit it. Let's see, Soberhagen. I rolled him. I stole. Okay, I'm not even gonna lie. When I wrote this, I didn't bother reinventing anything if I could avoid it. I just flat out mugged these old guys and took their stuff and their shoes, so that way I could get away. Yeah.
I mean, okay, maybe you can settle this for it. Was it Soberhagen or Saberhagen? When I was a kid, I said Saberhagen all the time as a kid. But regardless of what it is, the Berserker books were amazing. Yes. But a lot of people overlook this, and I'm here to tell my audience. Fred S. He wrote a fantastic fantasy series.
Oh God, he did. What was the name of that?
That was the Books of Swords.
Yeah,
Fred S. And they're actually in Appendix N.
yeah.
They are listed in Appendix N, guys. Turn your Saberhagen 45 over. There's a great track on the other side too. Not just the Berserker twist. How about Lalmer Bolo?
Yes. Oh God, you want to know how bad I ripped that off?
I can believe it because
I actually have bolos in the series.
And you are no more guilty than all of the guys over at Steve Jackson Games. I mean, Ogre is, which in their defense, they did approach. They did approach the family about doing a Bolo board game, and they said, well, no, that's. One, we don't think it would sell terribly well, and two, that we're not really interested in licensing it to you. And it's still a going concern today. And they literally all they changed was the name. Okay, it's not Bolo, it's Ogre.
Yeah, and I was like, and I wrote main books, and I said, hey, if you want me to not include these chapters in there, not include Bolos, tell me, and I'll just change their name because I got a cool name. I even had a cool name lined up, and they never got back to me. So I guess I'm going to use it because the Bolo chapters are like 15 chapters out of 1,000. Although people did love the scene where the anime girl pilot drifted a Bolo and then jumped it over a bridge.
Oh yeah, no, and that was I think when I was a kid, other than Starship Troopers, Bolo was probably the first HFY science fiction I read, because all of for our audience, my guest and I are carrying a conversation that might be kind of flying above you. Bolos are office building size super tanks with incredibly caring and fatherly or motherly artificial intelligences that drive them. They love human beings. They adore us. It is like having a hyper intelligent Labrador retriever that's 200 meters long, weighs 70,000 metric tons, and are classified in terms of what planet one of them can lay siege to.
Yes. Continental siege engines and planetary siege engines.
Planetary siege unit Mark 33 Bolo of the Dinochrome Brigade. Yes, I have read the books a few times, but
it's from Saberhagen. I stole the C+ cannon because it is such a simple thing. You know what gets me? They're not in Star Wars.
Skips that slug in and out of reality.
They should be in Star Wars. They really should, because the hyperdrives in Star Wars, you can put them on an X-wing. You can put them on a train car sized piece of iron and enjoy your Star Destroyer.
Yeah. Depending on how canon you do or do not consider the and I have by the way, if you're still watching this, Volcano God, I still have your Star Wars role-playing game books. Let me know when you want these back, bud. Depending on how canon you consider the Star Wars role-playing game, you can stick a hyperdrive on an escape pod.
Yes.
There's nothing that shouldn't have hyperdrive in it if it flies in the Star Wars universe. But you're absolutely right. I'm sure you've probably been through that intellectual exercise of who would win, the Federation or the Empire. The Empire, as soon as they realized they could just, program something with hyperdrive and fly it through the Enterprise.
Well, I'm ex-military, so I watch a lot of I watch Star Wars and I watch Star Trek, and I'm like, oh my God. And the other thing is I love technology. I really do. Part of the basis of First Contact / Behold Humanity is, what would the replicator really do to everything? And the replicators are always shown, making the bald-headed a bald-headed captain a cup of tea. But why do I need supply lines anymore? I have a replicator and I have a unlimited source of energy, so I can do energy to matter. I don't need supply lines. I can make uniforms, weapons, ammunition, guns, tanks, you name it. I can build it from the replicator. What does it really do to war fighting?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, look at Now, I hopefully you will respect this, because this is absolutely something that YouTube will slam my you know what in the door over. The current situation that is ongoing in the southern part of what used to be the Soviet Union.
Oh yeah.
One of the belligerent parties, whose country is much smaller than the other belligerent party, they've been using 3D printers to make
Yeah.
things that they need. How do you stop someone who can go out, I mean, today, who can go out, collect a bunch of soda bottles, melt them down, and make guidance fins for something that is normally not a guided weapon?
Yeah. And I actually had to approach that in my story. I had to approach that, and it would be, if getting the nanoforge. Imagine you've got a 50 caliber crew serve weapon and you've got a nanoforge on the side of it that you can actually switch ammunition on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking it's endless. You
Yep.
just need cooling on the barrels, and
And
the weapons, everything.
and again, to go back to simple filament 3D printers that have a recycling capability to take junk plastic and turn it into filament, we're close.
Yeah.
We're so close. There are scientists, and guys, you can look me up on this. There are scientists who come up with a way to extract protein from air.
Let's not forget, in the early 2000s, they developed the thermal. It was this big thing, and you could put virtually any kind of garbage out of the landfills into it, and what came out was various classes of oil and carbon dust.
Yeah.
And it was in the news and everything, and in the 2010s they shut that company down so hard that I think one of the guys vanished from the face of the earth.
I can believe it. So, but taking those things together, that's now, that's today. You push that forward 50 or 60 years, and suddenly you don't have to worry about trucks bringing supplies.
I had to go 8,000 years in the future. And, humanity is absolutely crazy in that setting. We're absolutely crazy. We're post-scarcity. We can even come back from the dead. I mean, I took the idea of copying somebody's brain and putting them in another body. I took that and ran with it, because if we can't beat that in 8,000 years, I don't know what we're doing.
Well, I mean, those are all great, fascinating sounding concepts. And guys, the link's right there. If this is the kind of thing that tickles your fancy for a sci-fi read, or you want to mine it for good ideas or what have you, right there is the link. The Behold Humanity 15-book series. Now that is the all-in-one price. The price that Amazon gives there. But for those of us who may have a slightly thinner wallet, you can get those in separate volumes, correct?
You know what? I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna tell your audience the same thing I tell everybody else. Look, buy them one at a time. But I have them on Kindle. You can read them on if you've got a Amazon or your Kindle subscription, you can read them like that. But I'm gonna say this: if you're broke, times are tough, life is hard. We had to buy our own birthday cards. If you are seriously broke, go to Royal Road or Reddit/HFY and look up First Contact and read it for free. Okay? If you don't have the money to toss me some cash, go read it for free, because I would rather you got some escapism and got to just relax. I don't lecture you. I don't talk about my favorite political system. I don't lecture you about anything from the modern day. You don't have my preferred economic theories or anything. No. I give you a story and you get to enjoy it. And if you can't afford it, then go read it for free, because I would rather you got to read it than you didn't. Then I'm not one of these guys that are saying I'm not going to let you read my stuff unless you come up with $20. No. Okay. If you don't have, I get how tough it is out there. Okay. I'm not rich. I came out of the trailer park. I'm recently made good,
Right.
Up until 5 years ago, the closest car I ever had was 15 years old. Okay. If you can't afford it, baby, I've been there. I have been there with you. So if you can't afford it, go on Royal Road, go on Reddit and read it. Okay, there's 1,000 chapters of First Contact. There's 50 chapters of Dark Ages. There's 120 chapters of Nova War. Read it all for free, okay? Because if you can't afford it, baby, I have been there, and there is nothing worse than you can't afford something and you'd really like to get into it, but you just don't have the money. And I'd rather you enjoyed yourself and I didn't get paid, because so many of my fans donate to my Patreon, and they buy the books, and the people that donate to the Patreon literally do it so that you can enjoy it on Royal Road, so that people can enjoy it for free. Because I wrote this during COVID to keep, and you want to know how bad it was? I had people private messaging me telling me the only reason they were getting up in the morning, or the only reason they could keep going, was to read the next couple chapters. I was writing 2 or 3 chapters a day every day for like a year, because people were telling me the only reason I can do this, the only reason I can keep going with COVID, is because I haven't left my house. I have not been allowed by the law to leave my house in 60 days. This is the only thing keeping me going. I would rather you read it for free. If you're having tough times, read it for free. Take that $20 and buy some food. Buy some food, dude. Because it's just, times are tough.
No, it definitely is. And like I said, I mean, that is why I do what I do here on the channel. I sat down the middle afternoon in March of 2020, mid-March 2020, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because we had just heard on the news, on Tuesday, you're going about your business. You're hearing about this head cold, this chest cold that everybody's getting. On Wednesday, you may not leave your house. You may not go to the grocery store. Do not go to work. Do not send your kids to school.
And then to top it off, during that, I was driving around making deliveries to, I quit my job and I was making deliveries to people who were immunocompromised. I was making deliveries in my truck. Yeah. And I mean, I was doing that and writing. And, like my wife says, you can tell what people are like when things hit the fan. I went out and I did stuff. I didn't, I would look, stay in the house. I'm going to use the UV on it, come out and get it in about an hour.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I am completely with you. And so many people who I knew who were tabletop gamers, their getting out of the house was going to the comic store to pick up their books. And, then going Saturday night to the comic game store, or going to a friend's house on, whatever night to sit down and to game. And suddenly they couldn't do that. And I said, much as you did, I had a platform, it was Facebook at the time, Facebook Live, which I don't recommend anyone ever use. But, I put my little 1080p webcam up and my Blue Snowball mic, and I started talking to people, and I said, let's I'm here. Here's how I keep playing D&D online, because that's how I play D&D is Roll20. And so very much like yourself, it was a labor of love. It was an act of reaching out. And I think the fact, and I did put the link up there, guys, if you guys want to check this out. Let me ask you, my audience, not you, my guest. Let me ask you, my audience, guys, if you go through this and you look at this here, because I did put the Royal Road link up, and you read this and you like it, even if you blow through a few of the volumes, buy them. Give this man some money. If you like it that much, give him some of your money. So I think that it's a worthy cause, and we are very much support small creators around here. So now that you've gotten this epic done, though, what's next? What's in the future for you?
I went from First Contact, which finished out 1,000 chapters, and then when First Contact ended, humanity wasn't out of the bag, but the war was over. The Second Precursor War was over, and I ended it. I made sure every character got their ending, and then I took like a couple weeks break. I managed to keep from writing for 30 days, and then I wrote Dark Ages, which takes place in between that and Nova Wars. Mm-hmm. And now I'm doing Nova Wars, which humanity comes out of the bag. And it's funny, when the bag opens, in order to keep the gravitational shear forces from affecting anybody around the soul system, everybody in the galaxy and a couple neighboring ones all heard at the exact same time, "Let the universe shake in the wrath of Terra's soul." So, and when they came out of the bag, they were not kidding around. Humanity is overpowered in there, but it's kind of funny because, their friends are overpowered too. I had somebody who's like, "Oh, the aliens don't have this tech." Where you're seeing one side of the aliens, the Confederacy of aligned systems has the same tech as the Terrans. So, early on though, the other guys don't have as good a tech, but they also think they're like the greatest people ever. So it doesn't work out very well for them.
Right. Let me ask you something. Since we're talking about humanity, FYI, and I did invoke the man's name earlier, have you ever read the? I believe it is. I believe it's. It is Asimov. Have you ever read Victory Unintentional?
No, I don't think so.
So I'm going to spoil this. It's a 70-year-old sci-fi story, guy. Do you mind if I spoil it to you?
No, not okay. Out.
So, audience, I'm going to spoil this to you. Victory Unintentional is, it was written in the late 1940s. So when you could write about men from Venus, or men from Neptune. So we have a base on one of the moons of Jupiter, and we get a message from inside Jupiter. And there's this great exchange, this great cultural exchange via radio, and we contact the Jupiterians or whatever. And so the Jovians, I guess I should say, the Jovians, they basically intimate that they can't wait to meet fellow beings just like them. And then there was the kind of, what do you mean just like us? And so they're like, well, you're Jovians, but you're just Jovians that live in another world. And they're like, well, no, we're humans. Well, we don't know what a human is. Well, and they describe themselves, they don't describe themselves, but they say we're from Earth and yada. And they're like, well, we're just disgusted now. We're just disgusted now, and we're going to declare war on you. And humanity's like, well, wait, hang on. Let us send a ship and we can talk this out. So humanity builds a ship that can withstand the deep atmospheric pressures and the heat and everything, and lands on the presumptive surface of Jupiter. And these little 6-inch tall, 2-footer out Roomba style robots come rolling out. And the Jovians are so horrified and disgusted by them that they attempt to use chemical weapons, and it's oxygen, because that's toxic. And they throw oxygen grenades, and the little Roomba robots just roll through, and they're like, "Hi, hello."
Yeah, nice oxygen.
And so they one of the more curious of them is like, "Oh, can I go in that liquid lake over there?" And they're like, "That's selenium, and it's dead." You know what? You want to kill yourself? You go right ahead. And he rolls down in there, and there's some bubbles, and then he rolls back out a few minutes later, dragging this enormous life form with him. And he's holding a broken off tooth as one of his manipulators, and he's like, "It almost scratched me. I think it wanted to destroy me." And so they go through all of this, and so the Jovians, before they leave, come out, and they're all extremely nice. They're like, "We're so sorry about the misunderstanding. We truly, you are decent, nice folk, and we rescind our declaration of war on you." So they take off in their ship, and they're on their way back to Earth, and the robots finally realize that the Jovians thought the robots were humans.
Yeah.
And that was what they would be facing if they declared war on us. So,
in mine, it's called the prime miscalculation. All the other races laugh about it, that it never fails, that a race meets humanity, and they look at us and they're like, "We can totally take that guy." And the other races are like, no, you can't, because one of the Pathak, who's the first chapter you're going to read, Pathak eats an ice cream cone. This was a time where I hadn't really envisioned how big the Trinot are. But the race Pathak is from, their warriors are the size of a minivan. And they get to brag and flex on everybody because they have a 23% win rate against humanity. And they're always like, is anybody else come close to that? No? Ha! In your face, suckers! Bathok is the luckiest dude ever. Someone once described him as a guy so lucky that he'd win the lottery buying a sandwich. And there's Bathok, Bathok eats an ice cream cone. Way back in, I think like in the 600s or something like that, there's Bathok smokes a cigarette, and then there's Bathok in the Great Moo Raid, and then there's Bathok makes a video, and then there's how Bathok totally on purpose and not at all accidentally saved Christmas, and there's Bathok in the Mystery of the Malevolent Holiday Gourd. Yes, I actually wrote holiday specials into the story.
That's lovely. That is wonderful. I can't wait to read those. But
Bathok is great.
That's I love it. Holiday specials, man.
Another thing I did that nobody else does. You're reading this, you're going to encounter a female character, and she's evil. I'm not going to lie to you, she's evil.
Okay.
You might be relieved. She doesn't get a sympathetic backstory. She doesn't get she's evil, but this is why she's really good. No, she isn't redeemed. She's not redeemed. She's not, this is why she's actually good. No. The detainee is an evil bitch. And she stays an evil bitch. It's I'm chapter 100 of Nova Wars. She's still an evil bitch. She's evil. She's supposed to be evil.
Right. I mean, it's fun to have villains who get redemption arcs, but no. Drelsna from S4, Loth from Q1, and this lady from your module. They start evil, they keep evil, they stay evil, they end evil.
She's cute, at least. She's described as short, about 5 feet tall, kind of matronly, large breasts, cute little face. But she'll shank you as soon as look at you. A lot of people are like, "Oh, it's Devil Mommy. It's Dami Mommy."
Oh, so she's like Dolores Umbridge from Harry Potter, eh?
Yeah. Looks wise, yeah. She'd shank Dolores so quick.
No, I can believe it.
But she's also a genius, so there's that.
That's bad combination for the good guys.
Yes. Well, the worst part is she'll work with the good guys because she's evil. She's without a doubt she's evil, but she really she's a humanity first person, and a humanity must survive. So she doesn't care about anybody but humanity. But when you get into humanity, she doesn't really care about them either.
Right. So like what is it in 40K? You have the Emperor of Mankind. He doesn't love people. He loves the concept of humanity.
Yes.
That's it. Don't these people like, oh, I'm going to pray to the Emperor. He doesn't care about you, guardsmen. He only cares if you sin, which could bring more chaos into the universe. Otherwise, he's just sitting there going, unplug me.
And I'll do a little bit of spoilers.
Okay.
I did something extremely different for modern writing. The digital Omni Messiah is not evil.
Okay.
He's actually good. He's actually a decent person.
That's good. That's wonderful to know.
Yeah, you never see that anymore.
You don't. You absolutely don't. Are you a fan of the works of Brian Lumley?
I've never heard of it. So.
Lumley wrote some Lovecraft pastiches. He actually kind of did a Sherlock Holmesian character in the mythos. H.P. Lovecraft fans are pretty divided over whether or not Lumley is a talentless hack or it's a fresh take on that. But he actually introduced the concept that Cthulhu has basically an anti-brother who is as noble as Cthulhu is screwed up, but he looks exactly the same.
Oh, geez.
So, he lives on this mostly water world with a basically a human looking proxy that interfaces with humans. But if someone accidentally elder signs themselves to the world and they stumble into him, they still go insane because he's a mile high, squid faced, semi gelatinous winged horror.
Yeah.
So, but of course, he's just like, I don't want, I really don't want to hurt you.
I
I'm,
will, but
oh no, not even that. Not even he's just like, I'm sorry you wound up here. There's my daughter. Talk to her. so yes, you can do that. You can have a little bit of fun and flip things on their ears, I think, and still write a damn fine book. So
people were really happy with me when the digital omnibus appears, and he doesn't have some kind of weird secret agenda. He actually does care about humanity, and he cares about more than humanity. He cares about everybody, and everybody was like, "This is so weird," and it's kind of refreshing because you don't get it anymore.
yeah,
everybody's like, "Oh, God is evil and the angels are dicks." It's like,
yeah.
wow.
That depending on what direction you come from with that can be kind of a fresh take on things. But I think in the mid 2000s, when everybody was listening to emo music and wearing Jinko jeans and all that jazz, we got a little bit too much of that. It's like, I'm a hard-boiled gumshoe detective, and I know the truth. The angels are assholes, and God is a dick. And I got a little, like, okay. Once it's kind of an interesting take. The 15th time, I'm just like, oh, you want the hot topic? That's on the second deck. Go like you're going to the Orange Julius.
Yes.
And take that escalator, and then you get there. So I appreciate the turn of the turn of attitude on that. So
yeah, there's a scene later. It hasn't gotten to it in the book. It's after the War in Heaven, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to get home because they're on this planet, and they went to the starport, and the starport's wrecked out. There's nobody left alive. There's no starships in orbit. And they're like, great, how are we going to get home? And the digital omnibus starts laughing. He goes, it never ceases to amaze me. You'll pray to me to ask me to help you in times like this. But when I'm standing right here, you won't ask me to help you get home. It's completely within my power to get you home.
You guys need a ride?
Yeah. He's like, I'm right here. I can help you get home.
I'll help. Well, they all sound like amazing reads, and because of people like you, my winter reading list grows. Everybody does summer reading lists. I do winter reading lists. It is growing longer and longer. We'll probably extend it to 2025 or 2026 now. But so do you do book conventions?
No.
You don't.
I am not the kind of person that should go to book conventions.
Okay. All right.
The last book conventions I went to did not end well for me.
Then that answers all the questions that I had that were on that. Let me just make a note here. All right. Well, that's that is pretty awesome. Now this is kind of, from a business standpoint, these tend to be sort of fragile questions. So I will completely understand if you say, I can't discuss that. But has anyone come to you about multimedia for your book ideas or for your books?
I did have some people were doing it they were doing reading it.
Audiobook. Okay.
Yeah, audiobook. Well, they were doing it on YouTube. And
I see.
And unfortunately, because now you can get your books on Audible if you're with Amazon, which Amazon's cool because Jeff Bezos doesn't go through my book and have sensitivity readers. Jeff Bezos just looks down once a month and says, "Here's your cut," and kicks some money off of that giant stack of money he sleeps on, and then he goes away. Right. He gives me complete control over everything. But I have it on Audible, so I can't tell anybody. I'm not allowed to tell people, hey, you can go ahead and do reading the posts out loud. I can't do that anymore. I used to be like, go ahead if you want to. But other than that, I had one person suggest, that maybe I should turn it into a manga, and I'm like, yeah. Have you looked at the sheer size of this? and everything. And they're like, well, I saw it's 1,000 chapters. Like, you need to read it.
Yeah.
Other than that, not really. I wouldn't work with Hollywood. If you offered me $1 million cash up front, hand carried by midgets, by sexy midget girls, I would not work with Hollywood. I find most of the people I have encountered that came out of Hollywood or worked in Hollywood, I have found them to be irredeemable scumbags that I wouldn't trust with an empty can of piss.
Mm.
I mean, they're terrible people. Every one of them I've ever encountered were terrible people.
I will say I've met some exceptions. I'm not downplaying that at all, because certainly you can meet some skeevy people from out there in La La Land. But I will say I've met a tiny thin sliver of exceptions, but by and large, I agree with you.
Yeah, they think they're your moral superior.
Yeah, that is the biggest. That is the biggest thing. So, gosh, we've been going almost 2 hours now.
Oh God, I can go forever. I'm one of those people.
Well, I definitely want to have you back on the show again. Okay. Let me just say that. And you were so quick to say, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah. I was kidding around with the missus actually about that, and I said, well, somebody was just like, yeah, do you need me to come on tonight? And I was like, I like to give a little bit of build up time to it. So it was just, it's kind of surprising, but I definitely, now that we met and talked, definitely going to have you back on the show. But if I don't normally do this, but if I were you, I would be on T-shirted before you're back on my show a second time, or else you and me could be in a lot of trouble if you don't do that. He seems pretty intense about that. So anyway,
I noticed that he seems a little intense about it.
Is there any like closing thought? Anything maybe we didn't discuss and got on the verge of or didn't complete? Anything you wanna wrap up with?
Nah, I mean, I'm one of those people that just blah blah blah.
I got you. I am too. I will go straight into help. I'm talking and I can't shut up mode.
Yeah. Listen. You probably should have stopped talking like a sentence ago. Yeah, probably.
Exactly. The best time to have stopped talking was one sentence before you did. As I have actually been told before, but with a smile. Man, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. I really, really, really appreciate it. I really do. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. I have a link. I will, you know what? I will put both your Amazon link and your, do I still, no, I don't have it in the paste buffer. The something road, was it? Royal Road. I will put the Royal Road link and the Amazon link. The Amazon link's in the description. I will put the Royal Road in there. Please check out this gentleman's books. They are really awesome. And we have some Hennessy and pistachios in the green room if you'd like to help yourself to that, Ralts. So thank you again for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
You're very, very welcome. I'm going to slide this big window open and I will tell you fine people out there that we will be back tomorrow night and we are going to play some Gamma World for your entertainment and education. Gamma World's a lot of fun. People enjoy it. It's kind of the dark horse favorite next to our Let's Plays of AD&D. So tune in for that. I'm going to get out of here, but before I do, my sincere apologies to Blues Traveler. We just ran out of time again tonight, guys. We'll try and have you on at some point in the future. So until then, everybody, boys and girls, regardless of whether or not you're a human fighting aliens for the first time ever, just beware because they damn well might have owl bears. Peace. Good night. I love you all.
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around, some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle way off course? Naked as a toad, all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to